Welcome to Finish Strong, the show that equips men to walk boldly in their faith and finish the race of life with no regrets. The Word of God challenges each of us to run with endurance. In a world full of distractions and challenges, we're here to help you to stay grounded in God's Word, lead with integrity, and live with meaning and purpose. Come along as your host Jeff Dunn helps to equip you by having real conversations with successful men who will tell their stories of perseverance. Clothed in biblical truth, these powerful stories will give you practical wisdom to show that it's not about how you start, it's how you finish.
Today, I'm honored to have Coach Dennis Dunn join us. Dennis is the head football coach and athletic director at North DeSoto High School in Shreveport, Louisiana. He's also a pastor of River Outreach Church here in Pineville. In case you hadn't done that math, it's about 2 hours from Shreveport to Pineville that he commutes each week. But Coach Dunn attended college at Southern Arkansas University, LSU Shreveport, and Centenary. He graduated from college in 1984, and he has been coaching ever since. He's been coaching and an educator for the past 42 years. So Dennis Dunn is truly a legend in Louisiana football. He spent most of his years coaching high school, but he also had a 10-year term coaching at Louisiana College. So just listen to these numbers. Dennis has been part of coaching 19 district titles, 9 state championships, 2 state runner-ups, and 1 national championship. He's won District Coach of the Year 19 times, State Coach of the Year 9 times, and was 1999 National Coach of the Year. So off the field and away from church, Dennis is a devoted family man. He and his wife Melanie are the proud parents of 4 children and 10 grandchildren. And so being the head football coach, an athletic director, a pastor, a husband, a father, a grandfather, you're probably thinking that Dennis Dunn has just cruised through life. Well, just like everyone else, he has had his bumps along the way, but it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And Dennis Dunn definitely has a plan for finishing strong. Coach Dunn, welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here. I appreciate you having me, Jeff.
Well, from the time I started this, you've been on my list. I'm like, I have got to interview Dennis Dunn. So glad to have you here today. And
it's an honor. Thank you.
Been personal friends with you for a few years now, but I've watched you from afar for decades, and your legend precedes you in the state of Louisiana. There's no doubt about that.
I appreciate that. It means a lot coming from you, Jeff. Well, you're a legend as well.
Well, I don't know about that, but so let's just kind of start from the beginning. Tell us about kind of your growing up years. You grew up here in Louisiana, I think in the Shreveport area. So tell us about kind of growing up. And
so actually born in Ruston, Louisiana, and my dad got a job at Woodlawn High School. New school there in Shreveport, Louisiana, and he was one of the original teachers at the Woodlawn campus starting in 1960. So we moved to Shreveport, and I was 6 months old, I think, when we moved, and grew up right there. My dream was to always graduate from Woodlawn High School, which I did, and had a very simple life. Both parents, educators. Grandmother was an educator, so it was always pretty much in my blood that I would probably be in education in some form or fashion. But really, simple. Again, nothing extravagant in terms of my life. I just earliest memories of wanting to coach and be an educator was Woodlawn High School. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but it is the home of Terry Bradshaw, Joe Ferguson, which is a name not a lot of people really can relate to anymore, but he was a longtime NFL quarterback as well.
Yes.
But then Robert Parrish, the chief, who played for the Boston Celtics for a long time, all went to Woodlawn High School. Right. So it was a home of legends. Right. So the fact that I grew up in that community was something truly to behold, especially as a young boy. And my dad was right there in the center of it. He actually taught Terry and Joe. It taught them math, and he did say that Joe was a pretty good student. Terry could have been.
Had a little distracted.
But I got to be on the sideline a lot as a little boy, and some vivid memories, as a child, with my dad standing there watching my heroes, the Woodlawn Knights, play football.
Wow. So what was sports like for you growing up? Play the different sports?
I
Participate in
did.
different sports?
I grew up playing football, baseball, a little bit of basketball, but baseball and football were my favorites,
Mhm.
and played all the way through as long as I can remember. I had a ball in my hand.
Yes. Started at a young age
I
then, right?
did, sure did.
So what was the faith environment around your home? What was that
Uh,
like growing up?
Jeff, we grew up in church, my sister and I, and Dad always had us in church every time the doors were open. And I grew up in a little Baptist church, Janet Lane Baptist Church, right there in the heart of South Shreveport. And so from my earliest memories, my dad would always have us there. And unfortunately, when I was about a freshman in high school, I started to see the strain between him and my mom. And it was at that point, probably freshman, sophomore year, that we began to move away from church. We just stopped going to church. And I'm sure it was related to their issues and things going on in their personal lives.
Yes.
But as a boy, um, you know, I could see the problems and didn't really understand them. But I mean, we can go into some of that if you want to. But those, those were the days that I look back on, and really it began my faith journey, because it was the first real trial that I faced as a young boy. I was probably 12, 13 when those issues started taking, and then I knew for a fact there was a major issue when I turned 14 years old. And then all the way up until, from 14 to 28, football kind of became my God, little G.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like I was, I walked the aisle and signed a card when I was a little boy, but I wasn't truly saved, because I went out and didn't really walk a faith life for a lot of years. And then I tell people all the time, you're really born again when the fruit of your life changes. And I was 28 years old when the fruit of my life changed. So we can go into that.
Oh, yeah. We have similar paths. I became a believer when I was 13, 14, and strayed for really till I was probably 27, 28 years old. And so what changed? What changed at 28 that kind of changed things?
So again, I mentioned that my God became football. And at the time I graduated and from college, my high school coach had allowed me to. I got injured at Southern Arkansas playing, and my career ended. And my high school coach, let me come back while I was in college and help, be an assistant. So that was a very cool experience from a young age.
Yeah.
And then I started as an assistant at Southwood High School and spent 2 years. And then my alma mater, Woodlawn High School, hired me as the head coach at 25 years old. My principal was the one that, when I was at Woodlawn, he was the principal. He's the one that hired me. So right before he died, I went back to him and I said, Mr. Cook, why did you hire a 25-year-old? Were you crazy? And he pointed at a picture of 3 of my former coaches. It was sitting up on his mantle at the time. He pointed that picture. He said, those guys told me to hire you. And that was the greatest honor at the moment of my life, that 3 of my former coaches said, you need to hire Dennis Dunn.
Yes.
But for him to hire a 25-year-old to in that position, today, in my mind, that's nuts. But again, that was a journey that the Lord allowed me to take. And then 2 years into that, my mom had some major mental health issues, and I really was struggling as a young married man, really young children, wondering, God, why are you allowing these things to happen to my mom? And she wound up marrying one of my college, one of my high school coaches, who she had an affair with when I was in school. So very trying, very difficult. And then he leaves her for another woman. The whole cycle of sin had really kind of crushed my family at that moment. So I was in a dark office one day, and all of these things. My mom was in a hospital. We had to put her in a hospital. She was having an episode that was just traumatic. I had never seen anything like it. And I said, God, if you're real, I need you to show up. I need you to show me that you're real. A series of events take place, and sure enough, um, a guy that had been a man that had been on the road in evangelism had come back to town to help his dad finish well as a pastor. But I had known him from his days at Louisiana Tech. He had been a star quarterback at Louisiana Tech and was a powerful speaker. His name's Dunn.
Yeah.
And he had come back home to help his dad finish well as a pastor. And he also had wanted to just reach out to some high school kids, because that was part of his evangelistic nature. Was he just wanted to be around kids, wanted to be around sports because he had been an athlete. So he started coming by Woodlawn and hanging out with my guys, throwing passes with them. And I got him to speak to my team a couple of times. And during that time, all of the young men on my team gave their hearts to Jesus through Denny's ministry, him
Amazing.
preaching the gospel to him. And the whole time he had no idea that he was also preaching to a young coach. And there in my office on 7340 Wingate Boulevard, Shreveport, Louisiana, I bowed my knee to Christ, and at 28 turned it all over to him. And it was, as they say, the rest is history.
Amazing. As a man. And you went on to coach with Denny Durham.
Yeah.
right?
So anyway, Denny and I became very, very
Yeah.
good friends. Evangel had not started at the time, and he kept, hanging out with us for a couple of years. And then his mom was the head mistress of the school, the Christian school, Evangel, which had opened like in 1980. But anyway, she wanted to give a senior class a football experience. So she told Denny, I'd like to give these seniors, this would have been in 1989, I'd like to give them a football experience. So she got Denny to start the program there, and he came to me and he said, I'm not doing this. You need to come be the coach. And I said, and I'm thinking, there's no way. I'm gonna be the next head coach at LSU. But anyway, after I'd given my heart to the Lord, it just became, to me, coaching changed. It became my ministry. And about 2 years later, I really felt like God was calling me into full-time ministry, Jeff. I really felt like I was going to get out of coaching and be in full-time ministry. And he was calling me into full-time ministry. He just let me keep my whistle.
Yes.
And I called Denny one day and said, Denny, if that offer is still available, I think maybe I'm supposed to come. He said, I knew you were supposed to be the coach. It was just going to be a matter of when you decided to do it. So fall of 92, I became the head coach of Evangel, and nobody even heard of it. It was 13 little boys when I showed up, and God did some amazing things. And here's what I'll tell you, and I'll tell the men out there: when you begin to take care of God's business, He knows your business a whole lot better than you do. And it really, for me, it was ministry. I was going into full-time ministry. I was gonna be a preacher coach, and I was gonna lead men the young men to Christ and develop them. And I can tell you what happened was a miracle because man, we could go a lot of different ways in talking about that whole story, Jeff. But 10, 9 state championships, a national championship, multiple college athletes,
Yeah.
pro athletes that came out of there, and
Yeah.
just the miracle. One quick story that I'll tell you. I could go on so many tangents
Love it.
here.
Love it. Go
My
on.
first, after my first year, not a whole lot had changed. I was coaching. I felt like I was doing a good job. We had a decent season. We went to the quarterfinals, but I started praying. I was like, God, I could have done this at Woodlawn, what I'm doing now. What needs to change? And I felt like the Holy Spirit spoke to me. It was a loud thought. It wasn't an audible thought, but I felt like this was before the old bracelets that had WWJD.
Yes.
That was before they came out. So I felt like I heard, well, if Jesus was the head coach, what would he do? So he took me to Isaiah 61. And I started reading Isaiah 61, and I was like, okay, Lord, where are the brokenhearted? And the first thing that came to my mind was a nursing home. Well, I'd never been to a nursing home in my life. I didn't have any grandparents that were nursing homes, so I said, I'm in this conversation with God. You want me to bring a football team to a nursing home? So I pick up the phone, and I back then it was a Yellow Pages. Now I mean it was before cell phones.
Yeah.
So I go through the Yellow Pages, and I find the closest nursing home to the school, and I call it, and I tell them who it was, Coach Dunn. And I said, I think I'm supposed to bring my football team to the nursing home. Coach Dunn, I've been expecting your call.
Really?
This is the woman on the other end. And she said, I was praying that God would send some boys to encourage these people.
Amazing.
So we connect, and the first time we go to the nursing home, I didn't even tell the boys what we're going to do. I was a little embarrassed. I said, this was on a Thursday afternoon. I said, guys, we're not practicing today. You get your jerseys on and get on the bus. When we get there, I'll tell you what we're going to do. So we drive up to the nursing home, and they're all looking at me like, what are we doing? I said, guys, there's some people in here who society has forgotten about. Many of them, their families have forgotten about them. I said, we're going to go in here, and we're going to tell them that they're still loved, and we want to spend some time with you and just tell you that you're not forgotten. Well, at that moment, when I saw the smiles, I saw the tears, I saw the hugs, I said, okay, God, I get it. So then I keep reading in Isaiah. I'm still a pretty new Christian when I'm called into ministry. I said, okay, God, where are the captives? And I said, you want me to bring a football team to a prison? So the sheriff of Bossier Parish was in our church at the time. So I called him. I said, Sheriff Dean, I said, would it be possible to get our football team in one of the prisons? He said, absolutely. He said, when you want to come? I said, what about this Thursday? We get on the bus, and we take those boys to one of the Bossier Parish prisons. And the boys at this time know I'm kind of crazy anyway. So now they're like, Coach, well, I said, you do the same thing you did at the nursing home. You go into that prison, you tell those men that you love them, that God hadn't forgot about them, and that he can still do a work in their life. And we for years, saw hundreds of prisoners born again, nursing home facilities transformed. And I can tell people think that I was a great coach and knew all X's and O's, and we were the gurus of the profession. I can tell you, God put his stamp on that thing when we started taking. No, you didn't read about the nursing homes and the prisons in the newspapers.
Yeah.
Nobody ever read that, but I am convinced that God said, okay.
Yes. And what it did in those boys' lives
Yes.
also, because I'm sure they
Yes.
would tell those stories
And they
today.
still, and
They'd
they
be great.
still, Jeff, they still call me, Coach. What an experience. What a beautiful time we had, and the memories that they have of those moments where lives were being really touched. And
The hands and feet of Jesus. They're
yeah,
the hands and feet of Jesus, and they got to experience firsthand, right?
so when we started doing that, that's when, after that first season, I said, God, I could be doing this somewhere else. He said, what would Jesus do if he was the head coach? Well, he showed me what Jesus would do. And at that point, the very next year, we won our first state championship. And then we went on to reel off, and he exalted us, humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, and in due season, he will exalt you. So
What a great message for any guy listening to this, wherever you are in the workplace. You don't have to be in a pulpit. You don't have to be on a church staff. Your ministry is where you are.
absolute 100%.
It's exactly where you are.
Yes.
So what an incredible testimony. So we serve a great God.
Yeah, we do. We do. And I have so many stories that we could go into with that.
Well, looking back on that, so obviously you had a lot of players, a lot of them that went to college, played at the college level, pro level, but you also had a lot of coaches under your watch over the last 42 years. I think you said you have something like 100 former players that they're now coaches.
Yeah.
So tell us about some of those guys.
Well, one of them's right here in Alexandria, Thomas Bachman, who's one of my all-time favorites, just an incredible competitor. And as a player, he was. I knew when Ash hired him, I said, "You give him time, he is gonna win and win big," and he has. It doesn't surprise me one bit what Thomas has done.
And he sat right in your chair a week ago, and I interviewed him last week. He said the same thing about you. That
well,
he just loved you and what your influence on his life. So.
Yeah, well, and as a kid, he was a fiery competitor just like he is now, but he really found Christ at Evangel Christian Academy, where I was privileged to coach him and worked with his dad. His dad was one of my assistants, still one of my dearest friends. So incredible times, and one young man. This is a very cool testimony. He's a coach. He played for me. His name is James McKeel. Played center, and he was brought to Evangel because he had a really, really bad speech impediment. He was his words were not, you couldn't really understand what he was saying, but he was brought there because we had a program that helped with speech. Anyway, James is in school, and just like a lot of young men, he was going through some issues when he was in middle school. When it was going to quit, and I said, James, you're not going to quit. I'm not letting you quit. Anyway, God healed him and helped him learn how to talk, and James, going into his senior year, became an unbelievable leader for us. And going into his senior year, he came to me. He said, Coach, I really believe that God has spoken to me that I'm to give my testimony of how God touched him and really touched his heart and saved him in the football team. And he said, I think I'm supposed to give my testimony to the opponents that we play after the game. And I'm thinking to myself, not going to happen, because we're going to beat most of these teams, if not all of them, and their coach is not going to let you talk to the team. Jeff, 13 of the 15 teams let him speak and give his testimony after the game. And the coolest thing was our crowd would go to the opponent's crowd, huddle after the game where the coach was talking. The coach would turn it over to James. So I was down there by myself with our team. Our whole crowd was down there listening to James. And 13 of 15 let him do it, let him give his testimony. And one of the greatest testimonies of my career was several years later. A handsome young man came to the field one day, and he was looking around, military uniform, And I said, "Can I help you?" And I walked up, shook his hand. He said, "You mind if I look around?" I said, "No." I said, "What's going on?" He said, "If you remember, you played Dallas Carter out here a few years ago, and you had a guy on your team that came to our huddle after the game and gave his testimony. He said, I gave my life to Jesus that night, and I just wanted to come back to the place that I'd given my heart to the Lord."
Amazing.
So
Wow.
stories like that, Jeff, I could sit here and tell all day. Just incredible, incredible fruit.
And I'm not speaking for you, but it would surpass any state championship trophy, any trophy in the trophy case.
Yes. Yes. That's the major victory.
Yes. And so any guy can do this at their own workplace, just like you did. You just took and listened to God. And in your workplace, you said, I'm going to be the hands and feet of Jesus in my workplace.
It's your ministry. I mean, God has given, not everybody's called to the pulpit, but everybody's called to minister.
Yes.
If you love Jesus, you are a minister.
Yeah.
And you can ask him, just like I did, God, what do you want me to do? And he'll give you the plan, and he'll show you.
Even Billy Graham said the next wave of salvation will come from the workplace. He felt like even in his later years, he was saying the next big wave of God is going to happen in the workplace. And so it's going to take men that are listening to this right now to say, in my workplace, I'm going to integrate God's conversation.
That's right.
So tell us about this. Probably just didn't happen in a vacuum. So who were some of your influences? Like, who are some guys that poured into you, invested in you? Maybe you, when you were a young Christian, discipled you, brought you along in the faith. So who are some of those guys?
Well, I can, obviously, Denny was a huge impact in my life. Obviously, young life was my dad, and this is maybe a little bit ironic. Probably one of the biggest influences that in my life has been my son. My son Derek has really impacted me just with his walk. He's 19 years old, has a scholarship to play football at Central Arkansas, which made Daddy proud, But he comes to me in July before he would report in August, and he said, Dad, he says, I love football, but I don't love it like you do. He said, I really don't want to play. So it kind of took me back. Like, okay, what's the plan? And he said, I really want to go to California. I really feel like I'm supposed to go to California and become an actor. And so at 19 years old, I let him. I mean, I don't know if I'm crazy or it was just, or I'm just, okay, I trust your faith. And I said, if you don't want to play, college football is like a business. I get it, but I want you to have a plan, So Melanie takes him out to California, drops him off at 19 years old. He gets a manager and he starts doing auditions and really was in some commercials, but it was a formulation time for him where God really had him kind of like David on the backside of the mountain, and he was just forming his future life. It was that point he realized he was called into ministry and has been in ministry ever since. 6 months out there, he goes into full-time ministry, and he's been in full-time ministry ever since. And it's been the dream of his heart to plant a church. And just a year ago, he planted Tove City Church in Fort Worth, Texas. So watching that journey from 19 to now he's 40, 21 years, he's really impacted me. Just his and he's seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of ministry and everything in between. And he's still got a heart and his faith is still intact. But that has truly influenced his dad. And so
was that the start of you getting in the pulpit? You pastor a church here in Central Louisiana?
Well, he actually helped us plant the church.
Okay.
He came back. He had traveled the world in ministry, and he came back to get a degree. And I was coaching at Louisiana College at the time, and he came back to finish his degree. and was actually helping me coach. He coached my receivers for a couple of years while he was here finishing school, and he helped George Barrett and I plant River Outreach Church. So he was one of the first elders,
Yes.
and
Yes.
and preached a good bit,
Yes.
in those early days. But
Yeah.
but no, he's been a huge influence, and has really impacted our congregation there at River Outreach Church, and now his own over there at Toe City Church in North Fort Worth.
Wow. Well, I know River Outreach is having an incredible impact. That was one of my first introductions to you, and having an incredible impact here in Central Louisiana, and just incredible that you're taking the ministry at work, and now you're in the pulpit for the past how many years?
17 years.
17 years. So
And that was so organic, Jeff. I came to Louisiana College with the same mindset. It was ministry. I was going to come down and impact now college football players, and we did the whole deal. We did the nursing home deal and joined a church while we were here. I wasn't looking to do anything. I really wasn't. I went to one of the churches in town, sat on the back row, but obviously, pastors can find you.
yeah.
So they found me, and will you start teaching a life group? So we started teaching a life group, and unfortunately, that church uh, had some issues, and the life group wanted to continue meeting, and I said, well, I don't want to impose on anyone's home, and I was really trying to put these men off. I mean,
God,
I'm
this
a
can't be
college
my
football
calling.
coach,
Exactly.
and we were looking for other churches, and finally to put these men. I said, look, if you find a building, I'll teach on Sundays. That's it. I'll teach on Sundays. I didn't think they'd find a building. I really didn't. 2 weeks later, they called me and said, Coach, I want you to come look at something. So right there on Main Street, they found this building that we could rent for $500 a month at the time, and and they held me to my word. So I had to start teaching on, and that was how River Outreach Church started. I mean, I was not looking to pastor, was not looking to even start a church, but those meetings grew, and those meetings now have turned into what is now River Outreach Church, and we have an unbelievable congregation
Yes,
and
you do.
amazing
Yes.
leaders, and the people who are around me there, and it's now a part of our life. Melanie and I love making the trip. We make it every Wednesday and Sunday to come and just pour into the lives of the people that God has given us to steward.
That's incredible. Still a full-time coach, full-time athletic director, pursuing district state championships, but still making that commute twice a week. And so I know God's honoring that. And I know that.
Got some great help now. And one of your dear friends, George Barrett, who is another man who continues to sow into my life and minister to me. You talk about a man who when God put he and I together, accountability partners. That's something I know we'll talk about in a second. But George is right now my dearest accountability brother, and he provokes me to righteousness every time I'm with him. And I could not do what I'm doing without him. And I keep telling him, George, you have got to stay healthy, because he really is a pastor and a pastor's heart, and he helps shepherd the sheep of that flock. And I can tell you, I could not continue to do what I do the way I do it without him and men like him.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's talk about accolades and how you handle accolades. So, I heard this recently. A pastor had dinner with Billy Graham when he was in his 90s. And I thought this was just fascinating. He had dinner with Billy Graham in his 1990s, in his 90s, and he said there's 6 or 7 people around the table. And so at the end of the night, he said the entire night was unbelievable, just because he was just so humble, and he was pointing at everybody else. He wanted to hear everybody else's story. He didn't want to tell his own story. So at the end of the night, this pastor asked him. He said, "If you could preach," because at that point Billy Graham was no longer preaching. He said, "If you could preach one more sermon, what would it be on?" And so without even hesitation, Billy Graham said, absolutely, beyond the shadow of doubt, I'd preach on Galatians 6:14. Well, this pastor just nodded and said, "Oh yeah, bet, brother, that'd be great." In his mind, he's like, "What's in Galatians 6:14?" So he's looking down at his phone, looking at his Bible app, and he looks it up. And this is what Galatians 6:14 says: "As for me, may I never boast about anything except the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ. Because of that cross, my interest in this world has been crucified, and the world's interest in me has also died." And so this pastor went on to say, if anybody could brag about what they've done in this world in ministry for Christ, it could be Billy Graham.
Yeah.
The hundreds and millions of people that have been saved because of that guy's ministry. But the one verse he wanted to preach on was, as for me, I'll never boast about anything.
Yeah.
Because it's all about the cross. And so with 9 state championships, a national championship, these hundreds of guys off your coaching tree, the thousands of kids that you've impacted over the last 42 years, how do you resist the temptation not to make it about Dennis Dunn? And I know you as a humble man, I know that about you, but I want them to hear it from you on how you handle that.
My identity is no longer in the game, in football. I mean, if we went on a losing streak, which I hate losing, don't get me wrong, but I would still be Dennis Dunn, Christ follower, not football coach. And that's the difference from where I was pre-Jesus. Football was my identity, and that's why I was so lost at the time. I was empty. I was climbing the ladder of success, but when I got to the top of it, it was leaning on the wrong wall. Now, no matter what the outcome is, my identity is in Him, not in the accolades, not in the success. I don't care. I really don't care. My record is not going to be on my tombstone. Did I live for Him? Did I make an impact for Him?
Yeah.
And that's how I would preach that verse right there, that my identity is in Christ and Him alone, period. He's my hero. He's the hero of my story.
Yeah.
And He continues to be the hero of my story.
Yeah. You just heard, guys, you just heard it from a guy that's been hugely successful in his profession, that you can chase that gold ring, that ever elusive gold ring, your entire life, and maybe never
It's
even
empty.
catch it.
Here's what I'll
It's
tell you,
emptiness.
Jeff. I stood on that, the first time I stood on that Superdome carpet, which is every coach's dream, to stand on every high school coach in Louisiana wants to finish in the Superdome. Some of them coach 40 years and don't ever get to do it. And the first time I did it, about 30 minutes after the game was over and we had won, I'm thinking to myself, is that all there is? I mean, it's empty.
Yes.
It's all empty.
Yes.
And every one of those rings, Jeff, today sits on a shelf somewhere gathering dust. And the treasure is not in the chase. It's in the journey, leading people and walking people and being an influence for King Jesus, period.
We need to put that on a T-shirt. The treasure is not in the chase.
It's not. It's not.
And the enemy wants us to make us think we just got to get that next thing.
Yeah.
We'll get that next thing, we're going to be satisfied.
Absolutely.
So the list is long of pastors, of coaches, of businessmen, of just every ordinary guy out there, guys that have started out strong. They start out strong in the faith, and man, I'm all about Jesus, and I've accepted Christ, and they're all in, and they may even be in a Bible study. They may even go to church. But the list is long of guys that start out strong, but they don't finish strong.
Yeah.
Some sin derailed them, some misstep derailed them. Not to say they can't come back. Obviously, God welcomes them back, but the list is long. So how does Dennis Dunn, what kind of guardrails, we'll call them, do you put in and have you put in your life to kind of guard you against? Because as we talk about in our men's ministry, every guy is born with a tattoo on him.
Yeah.
And it's a target.
Yeah.
It's the target of the enemy is on men.
Yes.
He knows if he takes out the man of the family, he's got the family.
Yeah.
So how does a successful coach pastor like yourself, how do you put guardrails up around yourself? And talk to us about that.
Well, obviously, you hear it all the time, but the boundary for me is my quiet time with him and the word every day. And to me, that is the guardrail. To me, pastoring for me keeps me in the word. And the word to me is the guardrail. I heard a stat the other day. One day reading the word doesn't make much difference. 2 days reading the word doesn't make much difference. But for whatever reason, being in the word at least 4 days a week somehow changes everything. So for me, that quiet time is my boundary. It's my guardrail. I've got to have it every morning. If I don't, then that day is not good for me. So I protect that. And then having an accountability partner who can speak into my life and tell me anything. And for me right now, it's the man by the name of George Barrett. I've already mentioned his name. Where I don't wear my feelings on my sleeve, speak into my life. What do you see? And for someone to tell you the truth, what they see, good, bad, or indifferent, is huge. And having somebody that you will allow to speak into your life is very important. You can't walk this walk alone. Um, it is a journey that a lot of times it feels lonely, but you've got to have people. I would say join a group. If you're not in a church, get with some men who are like-minded, who love God. Just for me, when I met Denny Duran, I was not in church, and he loved me right where I was, and didn't judge me, but I wanted to follow him because I saw something different in him that I didn't have. What is it that he's got that I don't have? That's what I wanted, and it was obviously the Jesus in him.
Yeah.
So those would be some. And here's what I would say: people are flawed, and a lot of men are hurt by other people. They've been hurt by life, and the greatest advice that my mentor gave me was, Dennis, um, any man who has ever looked to me as their source, I've always let them down. He said, let's both look to Jesus. And when I do let you down, which I'm inevitably going to do, he's never going to let you down. And that was the greatest advice I ever got from another human being, is that, man, people are going to let us down.
Yeah.
We're flawed. We're human. We make mistakes. And if our eyes are on people, you're going to be let down,
Yeah.
and you're going to be disillusioned a lot. And if your eyes on a minister or some man of God and they fall, if your eyes are on Jesus, he never fell. He was undefeated. Keep your eyes on him.
Yes.
And then when men fail and men let you down, he never lets us down.
Yeah.
And he's our source. People are not our, and if we can walk like that, walk with people,
Yes.
love people, need people, but understand people are not our source. Jesus is our source.
Yes. And you just absolutely nailed it, because that is, I mean, so key. It is so key. I mean, so many guys use excuses that, oh, well, just see, there's another guy that fell, so it's not possible, and so, and just, spending time in God's word. This is our 13th episode. All 13 guys have now said the number one thing that keeps the guardrails in their life is the word of God.
It is.
And so
it is.
And just to go a step further about that accountability, Howard Hendricks, who was at Dallas Theological Seminary for many years, did a study of 100 pastors that had fallen away from the faith. And this is several years ago. And he had interviewed 100 pastors and said, what really was the key thing that kind of loosened up in your life that caused you to fall away? And they said their personal alone time with God was non-existent. And then the second was they didn't have anybody accountable to.
Yeah.
Those top two things, that's the top two things those pastors said.
Well, it's the key. It's been the key for me, and I want to encourage you, man. You got to carve out that time, and one of the things that make a commitment. It's hard for in a world that really we're so contract driven in the society we live in, and people are breaking contracts all the time. But make a covenant with God and a commitment. Commitment it's not goals, or like you mentioned early on. Commitment is saying this is life or death.
Yes.
I heard a story recently about a man who was overweight. He was like 350 pounds, and he kept trying to lose weight, trying. He never could lose weight, and he tried everything. And finally, his daughter Megan, they found out, had a kidney disease, and they were going to have to take a kidney, and she needed a transplant. And the only match for Megan, his daughter, was him. But the doctor said, we can't take your kidney. We'll probably lose you on the operating table because you're too obese. He said, how long does she have? 6 months, maybe. He got committed. And in less than 6 months, this man lost 100 pounds and got himself prepared so he could give that kidney to his dying daughter. So commitment really is life and death.
Yes.
He wasn't committed until
Yes.
he had a reason.
Yes. Yes. And that's what we say. Commitments are greater than goals. I mean, you can have a goal all you want. You can have a goal to win the national championship,
Right.
or the state championship, but if they're not committed daily to doing what they need to do to be successful.
Commitment is life or death. If you
Yes.
don't commit, like this man did to
Yes.
his daughter,
Yes.
if we don't commit our lives to Christ
Yes.
and that time, then this world, you're a target, like you said in the
Yes.
very beginning.
Yes.
So
And
it's life or
challenge,
death.
absolutely. And I'll challenge the men here. Listen to this. We talk about this a lot. The buzzword in the Christian community. It seems like the last several years have been struggle. Oh, I just struggle with being overweight, or I just struggle with pornography addiction, or I struggle with this. And maybe I'm becoming hardened in my aging, but I'm like, you're really not struggling. I mean, you're just choosing not to be
Right.
committed to
Right.
losing the weight.
Right.
You're just choosing. Now, there's health concerns for some people. You tell you that, but you're just choosing not to get up and go to the gym every day. You're
Right.
just choosing to look at that on the computer versus throwing your computer out a window.
Right.
So having a commitment,
Yeah,
like you said, is life or death.
it is.
And in some cases, it's spiritual life or death.
Right. And that's
If you're not
it's just like a
committed.
marriage. I do a lot of weddings, and I say, marriage is not 50-50. It's really not. I mean, it's 100-100. If I'm going to be married, I can't give 50%. I mean, she can't just give it. There are days I don't have anything to give where she's got to give 100%. There are days you don't have anything to give. You got, and it's Jesus is there every day when you have nothing, when you have zero to give. He's there. You make your commitment to him. He will come through. I promise you, every time he comes through.
Yes. Yes.
He never leaves you. He never, even in your
Yeah.
darkest moments. We talk about challenges. This walk has not been easy. When we opened River Outreach Church, Jeff, and again, I don't want to scare men, but when we opened the church and decided we were going to be a church, all 4 of my children came under the assault of hell. And it was hard. I was like, Jesus, you sure? Derek's wife had 3 miscarriages this is right in those early years of the River Outreach Church. My daughter had her first child. This was now 15 years ago, right in the early days of River Outreach Church. Started having mysterious seizures. She still has them today. One of my daughters is struggling with church. Loves Jesus, but got church hurt.
Sure. Yeah.
And just really struggles with the organized church. And my youngest daughter came under some heavy attack, and so all 4. So I'll tell you, when you make a commitment, the enemy is gonna put a full court press on your life to really check your whole card. But I can tell you this: in every one of those instances, Jesus was more than enough, and has brought healing, has brought peace, and has been there every step of the way to walk Melanie and I and our kids and grandkids through every trial. And I don't know what we would have done in those moments without him.
And probably wouldn't have changed a thing, right? You wouldn't have changed a thing.
Not one
plant the
thing.
church.
Not one thing.
Yes. And so that's like Paul's talking about, like,
Yeah.
nothing's going to stop me.
Nothing.
Because I've been called by God to do something, nothing's going to stop me.
Yeah.
So what does Dennis Dunn want to be remembered for? So let's say this is your last day on earth, and they're going to gather here in the next few days, and we're going to celebrate Dennis's life.
I hope you're not being prophetic.
I'm not. No, God didn't give me anything on that. But what do you want to be remembered for? What? Not necessarily a tombstone, but hey,
Yeah.
they stand up and speak about Dennis Dunn.
It's a good
What you
question.
want to say?
I would say impact. Did Dennis Dunn was the success significant and not just success alone? Was there significance in the process? By that I mean, did I really impact lives for the kingdom? And did I help young men, when they leave my influence, become better husbands, better fathers, better businessmen and leaders in the community? Did I put out a lot of Thomas Bachmans who are making their own impact and legacy? Have I reproduced that? Not the wins or losses. Have I reproduced significance? And by that I mean, do they at least know about Jesus? And do they look to him at some point in their life and say, you know, Coach Dunn told me about this man that could make a difference in my life. And if that can be my legacy, then it was a life well lived, I think.
Well, I can't speak for all the young men that have been under your watch, but I can say mission accomplished from this day. I know you're not finished yet, but I know mission accomplished on that. So, okay, so we'll have a little fun here. Just a couple of lightning round quick questions for you. So who are 3 people, living or dead, that you'd love to have dinner with tonight?
Nick Saban, Billy Graham, and Bobby Bowden.
That would be an interesting. That'd be an interesting dinner, wouldn't it? That is great. 3 great men.
Yeah.
3 great men.
Coach Saban, obviously the best in the business,
Yes.
and have met him and Coach Bowden, and have spent time with Coach Saban and Coach Bowden at times.
Yes.
But both Coach Saban for his football expertise and
Yes.
leadership, just incredible leader and builder of people.
Yes.
Coach Bowden, because of his walk with Christ, and was able to do and coach football, college football at a very high level, and still have his faith intact. And then obviously Billy Graham, the greatest preacher of all time.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
so
And interesting, the coaching tree there too, because the coaching tree coming with Bowden, Mark Richt. I think Mark Richt got saved under Bobby Bowden.
Deion Sanders got saved.
Yes.
In the,
And so 2 different probably kind of trees that came out of those 2 men's lives for sure. So okay, so who's your favorite athlete of all time?
Joe Ferguson. I mean, I mentioned him early
Yeah.
on, but Joe was my hero, man. Growing up, watching Joe Ferguson, I tried to walk like him. I wanted to be just like Joe Ferguson. He probably doesn't even know that today, and that would embarrass him because he's so humble. But he was my all-time favorite because he was a Woodlawn Knight and went on to the highest level of professional football. So he was my hero.
Yes, yes. Great. Okay, so again, this is a podcast about men. So what could we look in the camera today and tell those guys and say, listen, if you're not where you need to be with Jesus right now, or if you've fallen away, or maybe you don't even know Jesus, but maybe you've fallen away and you're trying to get back on track, what would the biggest kind of locker room coach talk that Coach Dunn would give these guys to say, get back on track? It's never too late to get back on track and to finish strong.
Well, one of my favorite sayings is that failure is never final unless you quit. I mean, we're going to fail. I mean, it's probably multiple times a day. We were born sinners. All have sinned and come short of the glory of God. But the gift of God, the word says, is eternal life through Jesus Christ. Don't quit. Get back up. Run to him. Don't run from him. He's there waiting on you. And you may think that God is this harsh old man in the sky ready to hit you over the head. I can tell you he is a loving Father who wants you. He knew you were going to sin before you did it. He knew what you were going to do he knew you were going to say those words before you said them. He is waiting on you to turn back to him. It reminds me of the prodigal son. He went and got in the pig pen. And when he turned to come back to the Father's house, when he just made the turn, Jeff, the Bible says the Father ran to him. And he wrapped his arms around him, and he put a coat on him and had a feast. I can tell you, if you'll just turn your eyes, guys, just turn your eyes and say, God, I don't know where to go, but Coach Dunn said, if I just turn to you, I promise you this, if you'll turn, he'll run to you.
What a picture of God. And that's my testimony. That story transformed my life.
Wow.
When I heard it said like that God ran, because my picture of that
That's
is,
so good, Jeff.
because what would we do?
Yeah.
What would the normal dad do? They'd probably cross their arms. So they'd be sitting on the porch saying, come back, say you're sorry, get to work, and we'll talk later.
Yeah.
But that's not who God is.
That's not who he
As
is.
soon as we turn, I'm getting chills. He ran.
He ran.
He ran.
It's
as soon as
beautiful.
He saw you coming
Yes.
down the road.
Yes.
And so what a story. And what a story Dennis Dunn's life is. If someone could have written a story, they couldn't have written it any better. And so when I think about Dennis Dunn, I think of a faithful man that's impacted so many players, so many students, so many coaches over the years. And so I can't wait to see how the rest of the story is written.
I appreciate it.
I know you're chasing that state championship for North DeSoto. You've been close here the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So I'm confident you're going to be on that podium again down in New Orleans. I know that's not the ultimate goal, but I know being a competitor, you love to see it happen. So
We'd like to do it at least one more time before we quit.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your friendship, and thank you for being here today.
It means a lot, Jeff. Thank you. It's an honor.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. In 2 Timothy 4:7, the Apostle Paul is in prison, facing his impending death, and he says these words as a final reflection on his life and ministry. I've fought the good fight, I've finished the race, and I've remained faithful. Needless to say, Paul's life didn't start out strong. Persecuting and killing Christians isn't exactly the blueprint that God has for a man's life, but God had other plans. God said, I want that man. So Paul switched jerseys and made it his life's mission to spread the gospel no matter the circumstances. He made the decision that he would never give up, he would never back down, and he made the decision that he would finish strong. So as you just heard from Dennis Dunn, life's not easy, but if you are a follower of Jesus, God has said the same thing about you. I want that man. So how will you respond to that? The purpose of this podcast is not to give you another to-do list or to help heap guilt or shame on you from where you started or where you've been. The purpose of this podcast is to inspire you to action by hearing how godly men like Dennis Dunn don't just make lofty goals, they make commitments, because commitments are greater than goals. Finish strong is a daily decision that requires a daily commitment. It's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you want to encourage other men, share this podcast and leave us a review. Finish strong.